In this video, I will show you what is prophylaxis in chess. So you might have heard of this term before, a prophylactic move, or prophylaxis. And in chess, prophylaxis means that we are making a move as a preventative measure for a future move from our opponent, like any threats coming later on or attacks, just to prevent anything and we forget about it. We have this move that will make us feel safe and not worry about any future threats that could happen out of nowhere and we just miss them, right? So that is prophylaxis. And I will show you three positions or three things in this video. And we can start with this one in this Sicilian game with the black pieces after we capture the pawn here on d4 and they capture back with a knight. Here we have a move that is a prophylactic move for the black pieces in this knight off position. And here the move would be a6. a6 is considered a prophylactic move because the idea is that we would like to prevent any jumps from the knights or attacks from the bishop here on b5. That is the idea. So that is a prophylactic move. It's not a move that is activating any pieces right now for us, like the knights or the rooks or anything like that, because you would think, oh, this doesn't do anything because I could be activating my other pieces. But because of the knights, very powerful knights, and bishop, they can always give some sort of like check. For example, let's say we don't do anything like that, right? So they can do something like this. They can give us a check. They can bring the knight here, So we're just preventing any attacks or threats like that. Okay, so that is in the Sicilian position. We have that. This next position here, we're gonna look into a prophylactic move as well, and this is from the Spanish, the Ruy Lopez. And here we took the knight with the bishop. I believe it's a top engine move, and then they capture back. And here it is white to move, and we have a slight advantage, right? Which it's very minimal. But here our next move should be a prophylactic move to prevent anything in the future, right? So here, for example, we have our knight on c3, right? We have our knight on c3. Usually the knight is nice on d2 because, you're defending your knight, and then you have some reroutes of your knight to go to g3 at the end, or maybe e3. Yes, but because we have our knight here on c3, they can actually give us a little pin action here on the knight, and then our queen, if the queen ever moves anywhere, they can always just try to damage our structure because we're already castle here short. So here a nice prophylactic move would be h3, just like in the previous problem, right? So h3 here prevents any knight jumps and also bishop attacks, pinning the knight. So these are very nice moves, and the idea is not just to prevent any attacks or direct attacks at the current moment, but this lift of the pawn up to like h3 has a couple purposes. First of all, it prevents any positioning of the opponent's pieces attacking your pieces, but also for the endgame or later on, we prevent any sort of background checkmate because of this little window that we open for the king. Okay, so we can think of this as when we castle our king is in the castle, all safe. But if we don't have the window open, if there's an attack, the king can never escape. So we have that window open for the king to escape whenever it needs to, right? If they give us in the future like some checks or something here, the king can always just try to run away out of the window. Okay, so this is a prophylactic move that has a couple purposes, but not direct purposes because we are not kicking anything away, but preventing any jumps and also background problems. Okay, so that's a multi-purpose move. Let's look at the last position here. And this one is going to be from a Caro-Kann. Let's look at the moves. So we have e4, we have c6, we have d4, d5, knight c3, we capture, and we're going into the Tartakower variation of the Caro-Kann. where we are doubling up our pawns. Okay, so here they go c3, we go bishop d6, they go here bishop d3 with the light square bishop, and let's say they don't bring the queen yet for the battery, but let's say they go for the knight, protecting the king from any checks. And here we move our knight, they castle, we bring our rook here. And here, for example, let's say they go with bishop f4. Okay, so bishop f4. And we would like to consider a prophylactic move. What would it be? So first of all, we cannot, because we're looking at h3 all the time, or, you know, like moving the pawn, you may be thinking, oh, I can just move my pawn up, but then you would just lose your bishop, right? So we need to be careful here. And the idea here is that we're seeing that they have a light square bishop along the diagonal, very open, very powerful. Maybe not here on the queen side, but on the king side, always looking at here at the h7 pawn. And maybe a future idea for the white pieces will be to bring the queen here, activate the rooks, but then moving the queen here to c2 has a threat of, well, first of all, activates the rooks, but the threat is to actually, the battery is very powerful that it would just capture a pawn here on h7, right? So first of all, we're being attacked here by the bishop, and we can clear, of course, we can capture the bishop, but we can think of this as, if we are capturing their pieces, we're activating all their pieces from them. So let's have our opponents play our game. Let's not play their game, right? So yes, they want to trade the bishop. So let's have them trade the bishop, but then creating and also using a prophylactic move right now. What would be a prophylactic move right now for the black pieces? Hopefully you were able to think of knight f8. In the Tartakower variation, the knight usually belongs on f8 because it covers some essential squares, especially the h7 pawn. The idea of this move here is that it's a prophylactic move because, and it has a couple purposes. First of all, it defends and overprotects the h7 pawn from any future threats or attacks whenever the queen goes to c2. But also it allows the queen to defend the bishop. So if they were to capture here, now they're playing on our terms and we are activating our pieces. And the good thing is that we're also defending h7, right? And the idea is, for example, let's say if they go with queen c2, we always have ideas of we can just move the pawn to h6. But also we can just bring the knight here, overprotecting the pawn, without pushing the pawn forward. Maybe at one point we would like to do some like h5 ideas instead, maybe. But that is a prophylactic move that has future purposes, multi-purposes, especially in the previous position that we saw when the bishop went to f4. So hopefully this helps you understand a little bit more of what prophylaxis is, and maybe you can apply this to your future games, so that you can avoid any background checkmates, you know, problems like that. And also just prevent any knight jumps, bishop jumps, or attacks. You know, always like this little lift of the pawn is very important for our king to also escape, you know, out of the window. So I'll see you in the next video.